So, does anybody have a favorite comic book character? Mine was always Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man, and I'm talking as a fan of the comics before any of the movies came out. I watched the 90s animated series a lot, despite how hard it is to watch today. I'd actually recommend Spectacular Spider-Man now. Great series. The movies I did watch, but unlike many people, I didn't really like Spider-Man in many of them, especially the Sam Raimi films. Now, they aren't bad films. I grew up, watched them again, and I like 2 out of 3 of them. However, I see them more as supervillain movies. Spider-Man 1 has the Green Goblin, and Spider-Man 2, oh boy. Spider-Man 2 made me a Dr. Octopus fan, because due to him in the older animated series, I disliked the character a lot for a while until this movie. Glad to see Alfred returning to the role according to the rumors. He did a fantastic job. Spectacular Spider-Man did great with the series too. Actually, the Good Doctor started the Sinister Six in the comics. Yeah, most of the original lineup has been seen in a live-action movie at one point or another. The only ones we're missing is Kraven the Hunter. In Into the Spider-Verse live-action movie versus a multiverse version of the Sinister Six sounds like a win to me. Anyway, the Sinister Six is a powerful lineup of villains that have changed their ranks over the years. Oh man, one time they went to like a futuristic world for, really cool weaponry. It was so cool, and sorry, nerding out. The point is, the Sinister Six shows up in this game. Yeah, they actually don't show up in too many Spider-Man games, shockingly enough. A few smaller projects for sure, but main Spider-Man games, they have about 3 or 4. They show up on mobile, but still. This is surprising since this team-up is a really easy way to get a bunch of Spider-Man villains together. They show up in the trailer for this game, but it's about all I'm willing to spoil for now. If you want spoiler-free opinions, here we go. This game is amazing, which is generally a 9 out of 10 on my rating scale. If you like open-world 3D beat-em-up games, this may be up your alley. If you are a Spider-Man fan, I highly recommend this game. Hell, my biggest issue probably won't even bother you. If you are looking into getting into Spider-Man, however, this game may help with that. I'd still say my main issue is a smaller one, but you may be slightly lost on who some of these characters are. Everything else is spoiler territory, which I'm spoiling this game rotten. So let's do it. Let's take on the Sinister Six! So, get this, you play as Spider-Man in this game. I know, shocking, right? Peter here has been doing this for about 8 years now. His ultimate goal is coming to pass. He's about to help take down Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin. Most people think he is a Daredevil villain, and they aren't wrong, but he's also heavily associated with Spider-Man. You can learn more about Wilson Fisk in the Daredevil TV series on Netflix, a show I highly recommend if you don't mind the darker, violent tones. However, he first appeared in the Spider-Man comic, so there you go. Spider-Man takes little time in taking him down with the help of Yuri, a police captain. Yuri is basically one of the main people giving you missions. She's a part of the police force, but she's secretly helping Spider-Man out and relying heavily on his powers to get shit done. After taking down Kingpin, Peter has to go to work. Sadly, he's no longer working at the Daily Bugle in this. Instead, he works as an assistant for Dr. Otto Octavius. I know, but we're not there yet. Otto is trying to create robotic limbs that replace Lim's loss, but he wants his new limbs to work just as good as the originals. He is unfortunately shut down by Norman Osborn, who not only owns Oscorp, but is the mayor of New York City. Actually, no. I know, right? Yeah, this is just Norman Osborn in this story. Anyway, he shuts down Otto, trying to get him back into Oscorp, but Otto clearly doesn't like Norman at all. Eventually, Otto finds funding for his project and decides to not only make limbs that are as good as human limbs, but even better. I know, just give me a bit, will you? Anyway, after work, Peter often goes to Feast, a homeless shelter owned by Martin Lee. Oh, come on! That one you'd only know if you read the comics. You nerd. Anyway, Aunt May works here, and since Martin Lee leaves on a business trip a lot, she ends up more or less running the place. Anyway, now for the real action. Peter spends the first third of the story cleaning up Kingpin's goons while also running into a new gang called the Demons. He meets up with his ex, Mary Jane Watson, and the two work together for a bit. She actually works for the Daily Bugle as a reporter. Going April O'Neil on us? I should really look at a Turtles game, come to think of it. But yeah, Watson has been many things in the comic book. Broadway superstar, a model, a science nerd. But to my knowledge, this is the first time that she's been associated with the Daily Bugle as a reporter. Still, not a bad thing, and Spidey's relationship problems are actually brought up here. He has those a lot in the comics, by the way. Not a lot in the video games, which is a nice touch. Anyway, she's investigating many things, and she even ends up playable here and there. Spider-Man also joins up with police officer Jeffrey Davis. He is awesome, too. Anyway, eventually Spider-Man defeats the leader of the Demons, stopping an all-out gang war. At least so he thought, but an Osborn rally campaign where Officer Davis was being honored, the Demons show their true side. They aren't just a gang, they're terrorists. Their true leader, Martin Lee, aka Mr. Negative, hates Norman Osborn. This affects Peter deeply since he was friends with the man. Eventually, Peter chases the Demons in the second third of the plot, while Martin Lee searches for something called Devil's Breath. It is a chemical that can cause a deadly, spreadable disease, and Martin wants it as a dangerous bioweapon. In his way, although she's actually more of an obstacle for you, is Silver Sable. She's in a lot of video games, isn't she? She runs a huge business for mercenaries, and Osborn hires her for security. Anyway, eventually Spider-Man stops Martin, but now completed with his tentacles, Dr. Octopus goes evil since he also hates Osborn. He collects Devil's Breath, frees a ton of inmates from the regular prison, and frees a bunch of supervillain inmates from the nastier prison, the Raft. Finally, the last third of the story, and we're just now seeing the Sinister Six. We have Unimportant Villains 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yay! Unimportant Villain number 1 was Shocker, showing up way earlier in the story with absolutely no purpose other than being a boss fight. Most of the Sinister Six is also spider fodder, if I'm honest. Unless you read the comics, you will not know much about these villains outside of some optional reading. After somewhat quickly taking out 4 of the 6 members of the group, Spider-Man learns why Martin Lee and Otto hate Norman Osborn. He used Devil's Breath on a live human test subject unethically and basically turned a young Martin Lee into Mr. Negative, giving him his powers, but ultimately also leading to the death of his parents in the process. Otto happened to be working on the project with Norman and warned him this was a bad idea, and quit when he found out about Martin. Spidey goes to take out Mr. Negative and gain the cure for Devil's Breath, but Doc Ock intervenes and grabs the cure. Spidey finds out Aunt May is sick, builds a new suit based on, Doc Ock's tentacles, and goes after Doc Ock himself. Spider-Man defeats one of his deadliest foes, gets the cure, but sadly, it is never that easy. He could use it to save Aunt May, but a lot of people will die. Or he could save a lot of people, but Aunt May will die. After a touching scene with Aunt May revealing that she knows about him being Spider-Man, Peter makes his choice. Aunt May passes away, but New York is saved thanks to Spider-Man. Mayor Osborn resigns, and all is bittersweet in the world. This is a pretty decent story, but honestly, if you don't know who the likes of Shocker, Vulture, Electro, Rhino, and Scorpion are from the comic books, this game won't help that. There is optional reading for sure, and they have their own reasons to work for Otto, but, some of this is referencing from the comic books, but without previous knowledge from the comic books, I feel that this presentation falls flat. I know with how many characters are in this game, sometimes you can't work with all of them, but still, come on. If there wasn't such a huge chunk of time on chasing Martin Lee, the biggest part of the game, then perhaps more focus could have been given on some of these villains. I mean, seriously. Regardless, the rest of the writing is great. In fact, it is also part of the game's charm as well. Yeah, character interaction is actually really great in this game. Spider-Man quips at his foes a lot. My favorite is actually some of the characters in the story that the story doesn't care about. Vulture's real name is Adrian Toomes, and Spider makes a Rocky reference because of it. While Vulture doesn't get the joke, Electro certainly does and makes another Rocky reference. This makes Spider-Man so happy and it brought a smile to my face, and at least Electro is having fun with all this. How about when Spider-Man is talking to Mary Jane Watson through text and having some of things lost in translation? That's a relatable part to a lot of people. Or how about Miles Morales? He doesn't do much with the main story, if I'm honest, but his relationship with Peter is great regardless. Peter becomes a big brother-like figure to Miles through both his Peter and his Spider-Man persona after Miles' father, Jefferson Davis, passes away due to the demons bombing at that, rally Norman was having. Even when Miles gains spider powers at the end of the game and Peter just casually revealing that he's also Spider-Man, it brought a smile to me. And then there's Jonah Jameson. He retired from the Daily Bugle as well, only to start up a radio podcast. He comments a lot on things that you do as Spider-Man, and it is hilarious. From claiming you probably eat pigeons like an actual spider, to you creating potholes because you hate New York, I find his ramblings funny. Not everyone likes these, but I think they're charming in their own right. As for everything else, can you see this game? The remaster probably looks even better if I'm honest, but this is a PlayStation 4 game running on a vanilla PlayStation 4, and this looks great. Game sounds great too. Not just the voice work, but the music and sound effects are great, bringing a very scenic New York to life in many different ways. Hell, web-slinging through New York is amazing. You really don't press much to get Spider-Man moving, but that's kind of the way I like it. Simple and easy. Spider-Man moves around easily in the comic books after all, being one of the speedier characters in Marvel. Now, that's just getting around. It is simple enough, but you can eventually unlock more to do while swinging around, making getting around a lot faster even. Soon you'll be zipping through New York so fast you'll forget there's even a fast travel option with some silly Spider-Man on the subway loading animations. Those are great, by the way. Of course, then there's the combat. Unfortunately for anyone watching my Let's Play videos, I'm a bit of a basic bitch when it comes to combat. I find a 1-2 combo that is easy for me to do, and I often forget that I have other methods of fighting. Shame too, because there's so much here. I have Spidey gadgets making webbing, electrocute, or, hit more foes in one go, a ground pound, the ability to throw foes at other foes. My favorite, though, was homing in on a foe nearby with webbing and laying the smack down. Eventually I got to go at this, I could counter even enemies with weapons with this damn thing. Only the tank-like enemies gave me hell. I love it. No matter what your fighting style is, there's an option for you here. All of the abilities can be used to keep the combo going. Or, you can just be basic like me. Spider-Man is normally very responsive and will handle your button inputs very well. The only time he felt like he was lagging was when I was recording and there was a shit ton of enemies on screen. Keep in mind, this is on an older, less powerful PlayStation 4, and it only seems to happen with a ton of enemies while I'm recording. While not recording, it is rarely happening at all. Also, it rarely happens on the main missions. It was only the side missions that this happened on. Yep, main missions played perfectly fine for the most part. One of the things that impresses me the most about this game is that the main missions were often unique too. Some of them are go to this place for a cutscene for character building, but when a level does begin, it is normally really damn good. One level has you investigating cool secret areas in a boathouse. One has you climbing to a huge tower where you stealth up an elevator shaft dodging the demons trying to shoot at you. Some you have to play as Miles Morales or Mary Jane Watson to break up certain things with stealth missions. One of which is really fun since you play as MJ while watching Spider-Man take out thugs. The levels are varied enough with things like this, which is nice since sometimes games like this just throw more and more goons at you, although that happens here sometimes too. The boss fights are well worth it though. One scene has you chasing Shocker down, while another fight has you facing off against a stronger version of Shocker, one-on-one in a bank. Mr. Negative is fought 3 different times, and all 3 being different enough to feel unique. One has you fighting him on a military-like vehicle while having a mind fight with him. One has you squaring off in a very cramped-ass subway train. And one, you basically have to go rounds with him while he turns into his demonic form. You know, the demon within kind of thing. Yeah. Even the Sinister Six, while not really around much for the story, have great boss fights. Elektra and Vulture team up together, leading a very unique boss fight with those two. Scorpion and Rhino also team up with a unique boss fight, but it isn't as exciting in my opinion. The final boss fight with Doc Ock is just amazing, both emotionally for Spider-Man and super cool for the players. All in all, I think everything checks out here. Sure, not all the levels are super original, but I think they change things up to be varied. Also, I don't mind playing as Miles and MJ, but I think those are some of the more challenging levels, if I'm honest. They're not too bad overall, but they can kind of cut up the pacing just a tad bit here and there. Just saying. Now for the side quests, and buckle in, folks, because there's a ton of them here. Let's go through them, shall we? First, you find out Black Cat is in town. Spider-Man's versions of Catwoman, more or less. Black Cat is stealing things. Go figure. The way you track her down is through an I Spy-like minigame, and eventually you unlock a new costume for your troubles. A little fun side event. You can also end up helping Harry Osborn, who is supposed to be on vacation in Europe, but you find out in the main story he's actually sick. Regardless, he has you doing science-like missions in an effort to help him save the ecosystem. Neat. You get science tokens for this. Oh boy, wait until I explain the tokens. You can also catch pigeons for a homeless fella for a few science tokens. You can take on challenges from Taskmaster for challenge tokens. That last one also leads to a boss fight too. A challenging boss for sure. You can take pictures of Landmark for Landmark tokens. You can find old backpacks belonging to Peter for both backpack tokens as well as cool little collectible pieces like a piece of Mysterio's helmet or a Sandman who's, you know, stuck in a bottle that Spider-Man just left in a backpack hanging around somewhere. You can take on crimes being committed by Kingpin's goons, demons, escaped inmates, or Silver Sable's mercenary goons. Whew, that's a lot. They all have base camps as well. These have huge amounts of goons to fight, which is where I experience the highest chance of slowdown from Spidey. Still, no issues while not recording, and if you get base tokens from these as well, so that's nice. All of these tokens help you unlock some really cool stuff. You can unlock new costumes as well as some optional gadgets. All costumes unlock new abilities as well, which thankfully you can mix and match with different costumes. I like the ability, but not the costume. You can change that shit up. This makes side quests really fun and actually super useful. Not so much that they're needed to progress, but enough to, you know, be useful regardless. There's also other side quests, actually smaller missions for Spider-Man to do. These are also really fun. One has you investigating a blackmailing issue and stopping a daring heist before it can go on. One has you help a bunch of college kids who were possessed by Martin Lee. One of them, you're taking on Kingpin's goons to stop him from stealing evidence. One of them, you have a boss fight with a character by the name of Tombstone. Fun fight for sure. All in all, outside of the longer base missions, these are all really fun. I enjoy tackling them even if I'm only doing it for another costume or to learn about the character named Speedball. Go figure. So while I enjoyed my time with this game, there are obviously a few issues. If you don't read the comics, you're going to be lost with a lot of these characters. Mr. Negative and Dr. Octopus get plenty of character development, but the other bad guys aren't so lucky. Shocker, Vulture, Rhino, Electro, and Scorpion are literally just here to be a boss fight, while Miles Morales isn't exactly, you know, plot important either. However, at least his character writing gives you a better idea of the character, while the others only get small profiles in the options menu. Outside of that, though, things are perfectly fine. Even if the game thinks you've read the comic books beforehand, the rest of the characters and story work plenty well. The charming interactions are great, and the gameplay has a variety of different options, and the levels have some great designs and a variety of options as well. And the side quests will keep you busy for some time. Sure, some of the side quests are combat related, but some are different, like taking photos and finding cool goodies, all of which unlock more abilities and costumes for you. Overall, this game is amazing. Spectacular even. Web of. Untold Tales of. Marvel team-up. Anyway, it's a 9 out of 10 for me. It isn't perfect, but I still think this game is pretty good. Not all the levels are amazing, mind you, and not all the side quests are spectacular, but overall, I think this is a really fun game. Try it for yourself on the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 4 Pro, or the remastered version on the PlayStation 5, if you're that lucky to actually get a PlayStation 5. Jeez Louise, these things are like hunting for unicorns. This isn't the only Spider-Man game I'm going to play for this channel, but for now, that's all the time I have for this video. Anyway, if you like my look into this game, there is the Let's Play if you want more details on, kind of how I enjoyed things and kind of how I worked with things. And you could also give this, video a like, subscribe, comment. And if I get more views on this video, I may do another Spider-Man review sooner rather than later. As for the DLC, I'll be doing a Let's Play and review of the DLC hopefully soon. I gotta get back to, Final Fantasy VI, and I might take a bit of a break so I don't burn myself out on Spider-Man. So I might even do another Let's Play, maybe something shorter like Mario 64, but hopefully relatively soon regardless. Until then, have a great day, ladies and gents. Take care.